I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. Now, I have a goal for today's episode, and that is going to be jumping into more of the progression line of the Modpack. And hopefully we'll be able to get the Archimorph set up today. And we'll also be technically working towards the Archulation as well. Both of these have some kind of interesting story to them. So this is combining the Architron alongside sticky balls and the intense power of the Wither gas within the induction smelter to forge the Archimorph block. So this fusion compresses its energy, maximizing EMC out for your next level of creations. So this right here is all about gaining EMC. Of course, that's what this whole thing is. And of course, the higher tier you go up, the higher you can automate your EMC, essentially replacing power flowers. Now, when I was putting this together, there is something interesting. These two blocks you may think are kind of odd. And that's because to be able to make this, you use a dissolution chamber, but to be able to make this, you use an induction smelter. But if you look, this requires the dissolution chamber to make its components, and this one requires thermal to make its components. However, it's kind of like swapped. So this is like swapped back and forth between the components here. But this in reality does get us into a little bit of thermal. But the primary thing here is that you have Supreme frames automated, in which we do have Supreme frames automated, but I want to up my game on that. So to be able to do this, we're going to go back into our Industrial Foregoing area. And what I want to do is I want to take these 12 dissolution chambers and I want to set up a much faster autocraft than just simply using one dissolution chamber. So by scaling this up, I should be able to automate this at least 4 times faster. Now this is going to be pretty fun, and I kind of want to place them up top here. So what I'm going to have is a pattern provider that is set up just like so. And then a couple of blocks away, I guess leaving a 1 block gap right here, I will place another one. And we're going to have 3 of these because there are 3 different casings that we actually need to make that we're already technically making from Industrial Foregoing. But this is going to be scaling up our production of that, which I find to be kind of fun. So I'm going to place my dissolution chambers and I'm going to set them just like this. And this should allow the pattern provider to send its ingredients and spread it out into all of these machines. Now we are going to have to set up our dissolution chambers to be able to accept all of this. But yeah, it should be able to inject the fluids, inject the items, and also receive the items back, making this so nice for scaling up automation. Now, running the cables through here, oh man, this is why I love Applied Energistics. This makes it so easy to do because we can place this directly within a block, and because Applied Energistics facades look so good, I mean, you'll never even know that cables exist here, making this look super, super clean. And all you have to do that is just place them like so. Now it does get a little bit finicky if you have like transparent blocks, because transparent blocks of course kind of show through and you can actually see the anchors, unfortunately, but it still looks super, super clean with these blocks like so. And yeah, this can make things a little bit confusing to find, but that's where the network tool kind of comes into play. And the network tool allows you to see through these facades and also just simply pop the facades right off as well. Which is another nice little thing where it's supposed to allow you to pop the facades off and not, do we just right click? No, it's supposed to shift right click. It's not supposed to take the whole cable. Interesting. I don't know if that was a recent change or what have you, but anyways, there we go. Now it's all completely hidden and also connected. And I do get power up here, but I do have to put upgrades in all of these. Now in the past, scaling up like this could be kind of a hassle because you would have to go in and for every individual side, you would have to kind of configure things. Now in our case, the only thing we really have to configure is making sure the output is being pushed into the back, essentially pushing it back into the pattern provider. Now I would have to configure all of these to do that, and you could definitely miss something or forget, but with this, if you sneak right click a machine using this machine setting copier, oh, we're able to paste this. So we will be able to copy by shift right clicking. There we go. And then I should be able to right click on here, I believe, or is it punch? Sneak right click to clear and then copy settings. Maybe it's just open it. No, right click, shift right click. There we go. Settings stored. Okay. So can I just settings store to all of these? Yes. Okay. So it's also shift right click once they're in, and then to reset, we shift right click in the air. So there we go. So settings are copied, like I said, by pasting all of these. Beautiful. I can now go in. It's my first time using this thing, and we can see that those settings are copied. And it's just like a Mekanism where the sides of the machines are based on the position for where you placed it. So the back of the machine is always going to be the back of the machine. And so even if I copy it in this orientation, it will still carry over to this side. And so the same should be true for all of these. So I just get to simply paste all of these settings over. Oh, and this is so nice. And you can also do this with thermal as well. So to be able to automate this and get all of these machines working, what I'll do is I'll set this to blocking mode, and we're going to make sure our pattern only accepts one item. So put it in blocking mode, and then we'll only do one at a time for crafting. And this should allow it to distribute all of the ingredients for the crafts to all 4 machines, ultimately speeding things up. And technically, I already have all of the crafting patterns ready to go. I guess I could have stayed there and I could have taken them out here, because these are the crafting patterns right here. These are the main ones that we're going to want automated in this case. So let's head on over back into our Industrial Foregoing realm. There we go. And then I just got to place this inside of each one. Doesn't really matter what order you do. I'm going to place it in the order that you would actually craft them. But there we go. And so now when I craft the highest tier, we should hopefully, if I make the Supreme frame, which should be this one right here, right? If I, let's say, make 10 Supreme frames, we should hopefully see all of these getting filled. That's gotten filled, that got filled, that got filled, and that got filled. Perfect. Now I just got to get speed upgrades in here. So now with this done, we can start to dive a little bit deeper, I think, into thermal. So now that I have like a much faster way of producing these, this is going to go so much quicker when we actually set up the automation for it. So now we are on the thermal side, and I just got some cabling set up. So I went ahead and got our cross-dimensional quantum ring set up. So we have access to some channels using applied logistics, and we're going to need channels here a bit more than all of the other places that we've gone to. And then back here, I have a split off using a P2P, which allows me to get 32 channels off of my main controller in the overworld. And not touching our 32 base channels. Just trying to kind of make that point pretty clear, because like I said, we only have access to putting 32 P2Ps in each dimension. So it is kind of limiting, but I don't think we'll ever need that many. It's just something that I want to keep in mind. Now for the thermal stuff, if you want to copy machines over, this red print is what we're going to be using for copying machines. It's pretty cool and pretty cheap, but it does work in a very interesting way when it comes to like copying and pasting the settings. I think it's kind of similar to how the actual machine settings copier works. It doesn't work, however, the same way as the Mekanism one. And that's where things between mods can get kind of confusing when you're working with multiple mods and all of their different ways of doing things are completely different. But with that out of the way, we should now start to take a look at all of the individual components that are going to be needed in the future. So not only are we going to be working on the Archimorph, which is going to require that sticky ball automation and also the automation here that utilizes the machine frame and also, of course, the Architron. But we're going to have to worry about how we're going to be producing this stuff in the future here too. And so once we get this made, we can just completely jump into this mode. And this requires a lot to get set up, including the basalts, blitz, and all that, which we'll actually worry about next episode. But for today, we should be able to make these augments that are in here. And funny enough, I made these augments in this recipe to kind of let you know that this is like the max tier setup augments for most machines in the game, in the pack. So if you use this configuration, you will have machines that are running at insane speeds, but it does take a lot to make these. So they do definitely take a bit, but because of EMC, things should be pretty straightforward for us to get automated and set up. But we're going to need a few things, right? We're going to need some multi-servo presses. We're also going to need some other components too that we're going to have to automate. And each one of these thermal energy and also thermal add-on mod stuff requires them to be done in an induction smelter. Which means, yes, you guessed it, these induction smelters is probably going to be a good idea for each of these ingots to have at least 4 induction smelters to make this incredibly quick. Now we're only going to need, it looks like 3 of the main ingots that are going to have to be processed through an induction smelter recipe. That is to, of course, make this level that we see right here, which is through the thermal energy. But if you're going to want to make any of the other thermal addition stuff, which does have some really cool stuff for some of the other machines, yes, we could definitely dive into this later on, and we could probably utilize these in that process. But for right now, we only need 3, and I'm going to set up basically 4 machines per each of these. And so the reason why we're going to need this, right, is because to make the stellar component, you can see we need each of those through this list, but then it jumps down into the resonant component. And the resonant components, all of this stuff, for the most part, all of these regular thermals, these can be made just by crafting, and it'll be much faster for us to just handcraft these like this, or I say handcraft them, but have our auto crafting system craft them than it would be to have them initially go through that process. So we'll just have to worry about upgrading these machines. Now, I am going to want 4 of these machines as well, which is going to be right here, which is going to be dealing with our automation of this right here, the Archimorph. And that's going to take place right here. Now, all of these should have the same settings. Essentially, they're all going to be copied here. We're going to have auto input and auto output enabled. And then in the back, we're just going to have this set to input and output both. And then we just got to give them power, and that's essentially it. Copying them as well. Should be as easy as, I believe, shift right clicking, or is it just right clicking? It's right clicking. So that's our initial copy. And then I think shift right click in the air removes it. So right clicking to open up, and then we just right click, and that pastes all of those settings just like that. And we should notice that all of the settings have been copied here. Now on this side, I'm going to have a multi-servo press set up. This is going to be making the sheets, which are going to be required in this as well. And then we have one that's going to be made for gears, because there are going to be gears that are required and sheets that are required, and there's no other way to make them, like no regular standard crafting recipe. Something else to note, it is going to be a good idea to make sure blocking mode is turned on, and that's just going to go for all of these. I'm going to go ahead and make sure all of them are set to blocking mode, because we do want it to be able to separate and spread these items out evenly across all 4 of these machines. Now, with all of this auto crafting, I'm getting to the point where I now need to upgrade my applied energistics system. So I'm going through here and I'm going to start upgrading these components, or these pattern providers, into extended versions. So this is a normal pattern provider. This is the slots we have. This is an extended version. So yes, we get 3 more rows of slots, which is way, way more. And you can use these pattern provider upgrades to just directly upgrade the versions that you already have. I think the only downside in this is that, well, we have to do all of the molecular assemblers by hand. So now with all of these upgraded, oh man, we should really be looking pretty good. I just have to go in here and I have to make sure that each of these assemblers have max speed upgrades. And this is going to make sure that this can go as fast as possible. And yes, I am kind of getting tired of breaking the wall back here to access these, but it is what it is for right now. And once I have these all upgraded, it doesn't get any higher tier than this. So this is basically it. Now on this craft, I initially thought that these gears didn't have this recipe because I completely goofed and looked at this, but I'm still going to leave the multi-servo press there for right now. But yes, there's not a whole lot that does require you to even use this, because there's typically a alternative crafting recipe for this. And I think our crafters will be able to craft much faster than the press can actually work. However, we still are going to need our plates. So that's something to also keep in mind. We will still have to use the presses, but for normal press recipes. So beautiful. With all of that sorted out, we should be ready to get our automation up and rolling. So as of right now, I have all of this in here. And I think what I'll do is, for right now, I will place this pattern in here, which is going to produce the prismalium ingots, if I'm saying that correctly. I probably am absolutely butchering that. This one is going to be for the melodium ingot. And over here, I'm probably going to just set up the final one, which is the stellarium, if I could say it correctly too. And then finally, I'll go ahead and, for right now, I'll just put this pattern in here and this one in here. Kind of splitting up the 2 providers. Almost everything else can be done via regular auto crafting, which is pretty nice. So I guess for this, the only thing we have to do is we just need to get these upgraded ready to go. Now, these are going to be kind of expensive. This does require netherite and also requires nether stars. So you're going to be kind of required to have nether stars sort of automated in some way, whether that's from using reliquary and the tome and some way of automating that, or going about it by the old-fashioned method of just basically killing the wither through a wither farm. Now, we'll say this is going to be pretty slow without having basic upgrades. So I think for right now, it might be a good idea on this to at least at least in each one of these machines, have at least the resident integral components in them. Now, something interesting that I'm going to do is actually swap out this multi-servo press setup, and I'm actually going to put pulverizers here. So this is going to be replaced with pulverizers while I'm waiting for this other stuff to work. That way we can kind of get the diamonds crushed a lot faster in these. So after a quick second, this is now all ready to go. I have all of what would be the top tier augments for all of these machines, if it wasn't for add-on mods. And I'm going to use this to make all of the upgrades for these machines. So we can do some quick math here. And I do know I have 28 machines as of right now that are just sitting in front of me. So that means I'm going to need 28 of these stellar components. So if I grab that, I will say 28, just like that. And it says I'm missing some things. This is probably my mistake from setting up the autocrafts. I forgot to do the autocrafts for this. Oh, and I did not make an autocraft for blaze powder. So not a huge deal here. We just need to make sure that we have the gears. So this is the Enderium gear, and this is the Prismalium gear. So I'm going to go ahead and get that made. And then this ingot has a gear as well, right? Yes. And that was one of the other ones. And then also blaze rods. I don't have blaze rods to blaze powder automated yet. What's wrong with me? Okay, so there we go. Now I have that set up. And you can see I have so many more slots for autocrafts. It's kind of ridiculous how large this gets whenever you have the extended AE mod. It's just so much. So now that we have that, let's go back to making the 28, and beautiful. So now we can make all of this, and we can see just for these 28 they're going to be making, that's going to cost us 28 nether stars. I mean, we have plenty of nether stars backed up. Don't get me wrong. We have tons of them. So we have no problem doing this, but just saying, you are going to need nether stars for this operation. Now, interestingly enough, at the speed that this is going to be operating, you're going to probably notice something kind of ridiculous. This is very slow. We can see this operation bar working, but whenever we get these max upgrades that are right here in this list, so we have our efficiency nullifier and our energy nullifiers, 2 of those, 1 of these, and then a stellar, you're going to be like, that is ridiculous, because we won't even be able to see this operation bar working. Now, while I'm getting all of those crafted up real quick, I'm going to go ahead and start facading all of this. Just boop, 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 and boop, beep, and boop, and just a few more beeps and boop for good measure. Now, these things require a lot of power for their operations, and you can see those happening here. The lower tier, of course, not as much, but these start to require a lot more power, meaning they're going to be a bit slower. And same as they continue on into their final step. This is, of course, not the final step, but we are getting them. There they are. We're starting to get our stellar integral components. So now that I have all of those crafted up, it's time for the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and pull all of these out. And these are the upgrades that I need in order to upgrade all these machines to get to their max potential. I just have to go through here and pull out all of the ones that already exist. And time to now place all of these in. This is dramatic all on its own. This is going to be like a huge buff, but it is nothing compared to what these augments do to these machines. Just to kind of show you, just with this alone, if I put some diamonds in here, we'll see, yeah, it's a little bit faster. It's not like crazy noticeable. But if I, for example, put, let's say, 1 of these the efficiency nullifiers in here, and we pull up the information about how much power it's using, then we'll really start to see some things. So this goes up to 960 RF, and we'll see that this is now significantly faster. But when we add these 2 in here, things get a little bit crazier. We notice that our power actually goes down in our usage, but our efficiency goes up. And now when we put this in, the bar just goes ridiculously fast. And so it can get through all of those diamonds incredibly quick, and all of our machines are now going to be upgraded to this. I just have to remember 2 of those and 1 of the energy, so efficiency. So 2 energy, 1 efficiency, and we should be looking pretty good. So now when it comes to making these Stella components, for example, which we're going to need, this should now be making them a lot faster. I think our limiting factors are going to be some of our just auto crafting processes down the road. So you can see just making sure we get enough netherite scrap, and it all gets smelted up, and then everything just gets put together. And these are now going significantly faster than they were before. And we're doing 4 at a time, which makes that even quicker. And I will say that took less, like to make 10 of those, that took less than like 15 seconds. It's kind of ridiculous. So now that we have this, it's time for the fun part. And that is going to be going through the process of making the sticky balls. But we also got to keep in mind, because we're going to need this refined sunflower oil for our operation with the Archolution, which will be next episode. So this is just going to require us to have a fractionating still, it looks like, and that is a byproduct of crystallized oil, which comes from an alchemical imbuer. And this is actually how you would make potions, which is kind of neat. And that gets brewed in with an amethyst shard. That's pretty straightforward. And then also a sunflower inside of a multi-servo press. Okay, so the chain of events is going to go multi-servo press, alchemical imbuer, and then fractionating still. That seems pretty straightforward. Now we might end up needing more than one of these, but I'm going to start off my stack with the Supreme Black Hole Tank, and this will be connected into our Applied Energetics system. But this can essentially hold like an infinite amount of fluid. It's kind of ridiculous how much it stores. And then we're going to have a fractionating still, the alchemical imbuer on top of that, and then the multi-servo press on top of that. Now this one setup should produce quite a bit of all of these products. Now we are going to need like a barrel. We can do like functional storage for this, which shouldn't be too bad. And I can make like a container that's dressed up and looks like these. Something like this looks pretty good, where you have the frame drawer, and then I have some gray and white concrete on here. And this is going to be for the sticky balls that should come from the fractionating still right here. And I could place this on the front, really doesn't matter. We are going to have to connect it into our Applied Energetics system anyways, in some way. I guess EMC links are going to be what we need. I'm going to go ahead and use like at least a 64, I think, for this, and get these connected in, right? So our first thing is sunflowers. So we're going to have to send sunflowers directly into the top to the multi-servo press. So that'll go up here, and thankfully it can pull itself. So we'll just set up the configuration and auto pull, and that's going to pull those sunflowers into here. Now this is going to output not items, but a fluid in this case. And that is going to end up going in here. So we'll make sure to set our input into the top. Now this is also going to need to receive items. So we need an input on the right, and this is where we will do amethyst. Amethyst shard should be able to work here. And we'll use an EMC link for this too, because this has EMC. Very, very simple. Just like that. Beautiful. It does look kind of weird with all of the things on the side. Technically, you could put these all on like the back of the machines, and that would definitely look much cleaner and straighter. Now that I'm thinking about that, I'm going to actually do that. You know what? This will be on the face like this for now. But the EMC link, you know what? I'll put that in the back, just like so. And also this one can go in the back as well. So we'll have sunflower, and then we'll have amethyst. That should work out just fine. I'll just have to change the input, right, to make the back the input. That's pretty straightforward. So there we go. So that is set up. Now this is going to do a process, and then we're going to have an output here as well. I just want to make sure the output automatically gets sent into the fractionating still. So once the fractionating still is set up, we need to make sure it can pull the ingredients in. And then we're going to want the fluid that it generates to be sent out here. And technically, I can't have the frame drawer on the face of thermal machines. Thermal machines do not allow me to do that, but my goal is to have this on the back. So you know what? Let's just have this set up in the back like this to make it nice and clean. And then we can have the item output be the back, and also the output be the bottom, which will send the fluids into the bottom. This should work. And if we take some gates, we can go ahead and place some power directly on the face, because the face of the machine can receive power. And then I just need to get these upgraded. But by default, these are going to start running. And you can see this is already filling up. And it's already going through its operation. As soon as we have enough of the sunflower oil, that will then send into the fractionating still to be produced. There it goes. There's our first operation. And all should be well if everything is set up correctly. And this actually is much cleaner than I was originally thinking this setup was going to be. There we go. And down here, we have the refined sunflower oil, which we're going to need. And back here, we have our sticky balls. Now, the real magic is going to happen when all of these machines are max upgraded. So 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. And then Last but not least, right here. And just look at that climbing now. These are buckets, by the way, of this product. It's just so much. And you don't even see the bars moving, even though they are. You just don't see it even happening. It's happening so fast. Now, this has already filled up this drawer, which means this kind of jams up and stops working. So I'm going to go ahead and put a void upgrade onto this, and that will make sure that those get voided specifically. Because having this many in here is more than enough because of how quickly this actually is producing things. It's just so funny that it looks like it's not even producing, but it definitely is. You can see the number going up, but you don't see any information happening inside the GUI, which is so funny. Now, I wanted to try some stuff, something kind of janky. We have the entangled blocks, right? And I don't know if this is possible, but can I entangle my cables from Applied Energistics? This is something that I don't know if I can do. So this has my 32 channels, but can I carry that like underneath here, for example, and connect this in? So let's say I have this and I right click, it does say cable. So can I take like a dense yellow cable, or actually it doesn't even have to be dense, just regular, and attach it? Oh no, it doesn't work. Unfortunate. That would have just been too easy. However, what I can do instead is I can just tap in here, and I don't really care if I'm seeing these cables because it does fit this theme and looks really, really good in my opinion. But what I'm going to do back here is I'm going to connect this in. I could have used a fluid drawer and then had a controller right here and just used one storage bus for the controller, but you know what? Sometimes you just want to do things your way, and this is one of the ways I wanted to do this. So now I want to partition this. I always like to partition any of my fluids if I'm going to be using things for fluid storage. There we go. Oh, what is this? 128 channels on my main network. Nice. We finally hit that. I don't have to partition this one, I don't think, but I will. I guess I'll go ahead and do that one for this as well, just to make sure, because we don't have this drawer locked. I guess if it was locked, we wouldn't have to worry about that. But everything should be good. I mean, we just have to kind of close things back up. Now that we have this, it's, I think, time for the fun part. That's going to be automating the Archimorph. And so this operation, we should have everything needed for this to do the craft. So we'll create the crafting pattern for this. And I just need to place it in here. And all we have to do is go to the Chosen mod. And right there, I can go ahead and request at least one to kind of get things up and running. But notice, yes, how much EMC this has. You can definitely start to tell. This is only 876. Like with all of the trillion that we have, we can still only pull 800 of these out. And these are pretty darn cool looking. You can see right here that I kind of utilize some of the textures from the Industrial mod, Industrial Foregoing, and kind of made this look like it's containing the Archie in the middle. That with the Architron that we made, and of course the prior and so on and so forth. Each one is getting compressed deeper and deeper. That was sort of the idea behind all of these. But this is actually something that we could easily automate, and we can actually go ahead and get that automation started. Now, originally a simple solution would be, for example, just using a crafting card and have it pull out of this network and go directly into here. But unfortunately that won't work because we have our ProjectE connected in here, and it would essentially create a loop. Basically pulling our Archimorph RDL and not requesting a craft. So this method could not work in this case, but we could have items constantly sent into the induction smelters here through different means. And in that case, we can have these auto try to pull those ingredients in. And there is a much better way that we can probably do that and have that automatically produced. And what I'm thinking is using a ME interface. This could potentially work. What we would do is we would have our Architron block that goes in here, and we just keep like one in stock. Now, all of these are going to try and pull the Architron. I don't think it's going to constantly pull more than that, but if we go ahead and set the filter, we should be fine. Now, sticky, we should be able to set the sticky balls to 2. And so we'll put that in there. And then the only other thing, right, is going to be machine frames. And we can actually set a request crafting card in here to constantly keep those frames in stock. And we can set that to 4. That way it will always try to request 4 of those. Oop, let's do 4. Oh, I guess, there we go, 4. So that should keep 4 in. Let's get crafters. Or a crafting card. I actually have it in my inventory right here. So there we go. So that should pull the request. And hopefully this doesn't cause overflowing issues, which I know can happen, unfortunately. But it should auto send it back in the interface, essentially automating EMC in that way. Now, I just wanted to test out and make sure that it was smart enough to be able to negate this problem. And it seems like it is able to handle having this maxed out. It's not pulling any more of those items. So I was afraid that it was going to try to overflow this slot by pulling even more Architrons in here. But I filled all of them up, and it doesn't appear like it's doing that. It is simply just waiting for the products to kind of make its way into the machines, which is perfect. And now having 4 machines here would have been cool to have them all running, but it does appear like only one of the machines is technically working here. We would have to have some insane upscaled ability for making these Supreme machine frames in order for this to actually be better. But you know what? I can't complain too much. This is technically automated. And having this running for just a little bit is going to help recuperate some of the lost EMC in its production. But next episode, we are going to be taking the next tier, and that's where we're really going to be amping things up. And that's because this was only an EMC gain of 5 billion per operation and per craft. But the next tier takes us up to 25 million EMC per operation per craft. And we have everything automated for this. We just have to get our blitz, or our basalts, our blitz, and our blizz all automated and ready to go. Everything else we technically have. And of course, with my luck, I only got myself a diamond pickaxe. You've got to love that. So with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully you learned something new, whether it was about thermal or learning about the max upgrades within thermal, or how to automate these processes. Of course, guys, if you did enjoy, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a humongous thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And with that being said, I think it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And now this wall is getting kind of busy here. We're kind of running out of space, but big thanks going out to Next Patch. I love this name. Next Patch, if I can spell right. Fixes it 100%. That's a funny name. Thank you so much for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoyed your world download from last episode and or all of the past downloads. Thank you all so very much. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye!